admit, yeah, I was in on the red pill for a little bit. And I think that a lot of the description that they had about what dating was like and what you can see in the zeitgeist of like men versus women, I think they were able to describe and still are able to describe a lot of good things. But what I realized is that Bozzie. I'm just gonna do it. That's it. I'm doing it. I'm just gonna do it. I'm not gonna wait. I'm not gonna worry about, you know what I'm saying, how things come off. I'm not gonna worry about any of that. I'm just gonna do it. It feels overdue, right? So it's a lot of things, right? I'm trying to create. I'm trying to be a creator. I'm trying to do the things that I want to do, but I haven't been able to. And so I'm gonna just start. I'm not gonna worry about perfection, which is hard for me. I'm not gonna worry about things being exactly how I want them to be, which is hard for me because I don't necessarily like critique on things I know aren't perfect. And I think that's really what it is I'm fine with critique. But I don't like people to tell me something's not perfect when I know it's not perfect. So I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna start doing this, right? And I think part of the reason why this has just been so difficult is because like I understand, like I'm very like this is gonna sound crazy, but I'm very multifaceted, right? And so I dip into different like algorithms. I dip into different like niches, right? And I go to the people I really like for these different niches. And so like as I'm like again over analyzing things, as I'm like going through and saying like, yo, how can I um actually create content that is easy to identify, like where are you going and like what are you doing and how do I get a following. And so that's been tough for me, right? I went through Ruslan's like he did like this free thing not too long ago of like just getting people on board and like learning, you know, how to start creating. And like one of the things that he was like heavily focused on was finding a niche, right? Finding a niche. And I'm like, okay, well, finding a niche, that should be easy, right? My niche is just me being me. Like, that's not going that's not going to cut it, right? Because like people, how do I say this in a nice way? No one cares about me yet, right? And so I can't have this idea of yeah, just trusting that people are going to want to listen to what I have to say because I have to say it. Um, but the thing that made a little bit more sense for me is like, okay, well, people in my personal life really care about what I have to say. And I think some of that is just like part of like what I do for a living, what I've done for a living, right? What I've thrived in for over a decade. And part of that is just like just leading people through things and mentoring and coaching. And I think all of that is just leadership. And so, and stewardship, right? Stewardship of the people around you. And so when I finally, I think, discovered that my niche is leadership, and everything that I'm thinking through is it spawned from, hey, how should you be doing this, right? How could you be doing this? And a lot of it is yeah, critique on, hey, this would be a good idea if this. And a lot of it just spawns from who's leading this thing or who's following this trend, right? And so like if you narrow all of that down, I think my niche is leadership. And I think the thing, and this is what this video is going to be about, right? The thing that that made me think of that was this whole red pill manosphere arc that has happened. I I gotta admit, yeah, I was in on the red pill for a little bit. And that doesn't mean I was red pilled. I don't want to make it seem like it was something that it wasn't. But I think that a lot of the description that they had about what dating was like, and what you can see in the zeitgeist of like men versus women, I think they were able to describe, and still are able to describe, a lot of good things. But what I realized is that the not only were the prescriptions off, but the prescribers were off, right? And it's really interesting, right? The prescribers are not leading men well because they're not actually causing men to be good leaders. And the reason I can say that is because of this one point. And this is going to be like, I think the whole of this channel, this arc, maybe, if you will, it's just going to be leadership. And one of the things, like, I would tell people about leadership, people think that leadership has like these super like ethereal qualities of like, oh, you have to be strong and you have to be this and that. And I think that the first marker, right, the first identifier of a leader is followers. That's it. That's it. And most of us are leading people, right? You can either lead people well or you can lead them astray, right? And I think that's the difference between a good leader. When you think about historically, we think about like wars, whether the wars are just, right? What, I don't know what a just war is, or unjust. Again, I'm not prescribing or subscribing any positive or negative attributes. I couldn't tell you. I don't know. But those people, whether they're a good leader or a bad leader, can get people to rally around and put their life on the line for an idea that they got everybody to buy into, right? And so those are, again, we won't say good or bad, but effective leaders. And so all of us have leading a capability, right? We might have friends that if we give them a suggestion, they trust the suggestion. They followed your leadership, right? And so when I look at the red pill, they talk a lot about like, you know, being a leader, leading a woman, doing all of these things. And then you want to say, so I think they talk a lot about being an effective leader. And again, I think I gotta play my hand. Like the people I think about when I think about the red pill are like, yeah, like fresh and fit, like those kinds of people. And that's because they say the things the loudest. And they have a lot of men that rally behind them. We can say the Andrew Tates, but I think that's probably more overblown. I think people are just more entertained by Andrew Tate than they are trying to follow his lead. That's not to say that there aren't people trying to follow his lead, but I think the media overblows that. I don't see that. But I do see like talking points from a Fresh and Fit, which a lot of Andrew Tate's talking points originated with him being on Fresh and Fit. And so a lot of those talking points get into the zeitgeist. And I think what they do is they skew what all men are thinking or feel like, because a lot of men are like, yeah, I agree with this. And I would say the majority of men would agree with their descriptions. But this is what happens, right? Men are frustrated because women won't follow their lead. And I do think that there is a level in the again in the ethos of women having a stronger disposition, and maybe being less likely to follow any man's lead, whether he be a good leader or a bad leader. But that doesn't help when I don't believe that there are enough men that know how to lead themselves, and know how to lead themselves. Those are two different things. If you can't catch it, keep up. I don't know. I'm obviously joking, but yeah, like though that's the reality of things, and I don't think that the red pill does a good job of expressing and explaining what effective and good leadership looks like. I'm telling you, like, it doesn't matter. We can take it off of dating. When you see someone is doing a thing, they're effective at the thing, they're confident at the thing, they take responsibility, they don't blame others for their deficiencies, they just step up and they show out, and they don't need anyone else to pat them on the back to feel good about what they're doing. That is an easy person to follow. Like, I'm sure we've all seen good leaders where we're like, man, whatever they say, I'm gonna follow it. And I'm sure we've seen bad leaders where we're like, oh, that guy's an idiot. That girl's an idiot. They're not doing anything that I would do. Like, we've all experienced it. We've all had bad bosses, and I'm sure we've all had good bosses, maybe good teachers. I find it hard to believe that. Well, I mean, listen, without knowing what bad is, you wouldn't know what good is, right? There has to be a juxtaposition, and so whether you subscribe to ever having a good boss or a bad boss, I think you can identify the spectrum. Like, this person is a better leader objectively than this person was. And I just don't think that the red pill does enough to actually equip men to do the leadership things that make it easy and comfortable for a woman to follow. And again, we're not talking about dating. This is just an example of man of a whole movement creating, unintentionally creating, weaker, more dependent men, right? And I think that a lot of the talking from that side, the manosphere, that whole side of the internet, is you can't trust a woman because social media is bad, right? You can't trust a woman because she's gonna have friends that are bad influences. And again, it's all these things, but none of these guys have a woman following them, right? None of these guys, most of these guys aren't married. Most of these guys don't have a family. And most of these guys haven't actually been able to put these things into practice, right? Most of these guys haven't had to live with a woman and care for a woman or care for a family with self-sacrificial love, right? And so, just to tie it all in a bow, I'm a Christian, right? And we as Christian men who are married, we have got to understand the scriptures. We have got to understand that, yes, a woman, not a woman, a wife is to submit to her own husband as to the Lord, right? But a man is to love his wife like Christ loves the church and gave himself up for her, right? That is self-sacrificial love. What does that mean? It means your wife might be working, but she might not want to. And you have to be able to figure something out to make it so she doesn't have to work and she can do the things that make her, that are life-giving to her, right? Like, there has to be a teamwork atmosphere, but you have to minimize yourself in order to lift your wife up. And if you actually live in a life that understands what that means, you can talk about it better than anybody on in the manosphere side, right? It's just bizarre to me. And then a lot of men are just watching them because they have a lot of women. Dealing with women is not the same as loving a woman, right? It is not the same. It doesn't take the same amount of muscles, right? It's easy to deal with women. This is weird to say, but I've never had an issue dealing as far as like talking with and having banter with and communicating with women. But loving a woman like Christ loves the church and gave himself up to her or for her, it's that is not an easy feat. That's not an easy task. And that takes work and practice. And none of those guys in the manosphere can actually speak to that because they got 17 girlfriends. And that's not to, yeah, like it is what it is. But they got 17 girlfriends. That is not the same muscle. It's not the same. You're not building the same patience muscle. You're not building up the same long suffering muscle. It's not happening. You're not building up the same grit and how to work with a woman and get a woman to like work with you. There's something so beautiful about how Adam and Eve were brought together to work the land, to work together. Work is not the enemy. Work is not evil. Work is not a part of the fall. Unfruitfulness is a part of the fall, right? So I would just encourage you, man. Like, first, I mean, obviously, I'm encouraged because I'm finally doing the thing. I think I finally understand how I want to speak in to people. I finally understand how can I tie my expertise into a bow, and we'll talk about it as we go, right? But I thought this was an important topic to talk through about, man, how we are clearly desperate for help in leadership, right? Us as men, especially us as young men, right? And maybe I'm not a young man. I'm 33. I don't know if you consider that to be a young man. I consider myself to be a young man because I plan on being 90. But I don't know if anybody else would consider me to be a young man. But what I can say to young men, as someone that lost my dad at 21, we are in desperate desire for leadership and wanting someone to guide us and lead us and to show us the way. And I think that's why the manosphere has grown so much and has become so mainstream. The problem is that their description of the world falls very, very flat, or their description of the world is here, but their prescription on how to deal with what the description of the world is, it falls very flat. It just does. I just don't, there's not a ton of value in it because it's not solution based, which is not much better than being in your feelings. It's not much better. You can logically be in your feelings. And I think they might not know that. But yeah, like, this is what we're going to talk through. This is what we're going to talk through. This is the lens by which I see the world. Like, I think there's something to the logo I choose to use with like the sunglasses, because it's the lens by which I see the world. And I just think that a lot of us, honestly, we all just need Jesus, right? We all just need his teachings. We all need those ancient Hebrew teachings of what's right, what's wrong, and how do we navigate this world. Because unfortunately, the new stuff that comes up, it doesn't satiate, it doesn't actually guide me anywhere. But those ancient teachings seem to still hold true thousands of years later. So I think I'm gonna follow those. And if you want to follow those with me, we can. But I'm ready to start this thing up. I'm gonna do it from the ground up. I'm gonna just be consistent with my posting, and hopefully you enjoy the journey with me. I'm not sure if y'all can hear my little tag, but I'm gonna use it anyway. And yeah, we'll see you next time.